Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Today's episode is a game preview of the Week 4 matchup with the Giants heading to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. Giants still winless, the Buccaneers coming off of a really poor defeat against the Vikings. Certainly a bit of a worrying matchup for me. Don't want to see the Buccaneers falling into a hole in this early season, especially with the Falcons looking very good at the moment. So as always, I'm going to go through the game, breaking down what I believe are the key matchups, how I'm expecting both rosters to kind of face off, and game plan a little bit for each team, how I think they're going to approach this one before giving my opinion as to how things likely wind up. And let's start with the giant blue bugbear in the room, the New York Giants offence, who have been really poor up until that fourth quarter last week against the Eagles, where they seem to get a few things going. Obviously, the key player for this team is Odell Beckham, but he's not quite himself due to the injury. Don't put any of the blame at his feet there, but he's just lacking a little bit of explosion at the moment. I think we saw that last week. Made some great catches in that game. The hands are still there, but you'd expect, especially against that Eagles secondary, him to be wide open all the time. So the key matchup on this side of the ball is him against Brent Grimes, if Brent Grimes is back off of his shoulder injury. I would expect Grimes to have help in this matchup. At the moment, when you see the Giants, Brandon Marshall doesn't look like the same player that he's been for most of his career. I think he's just a big possession receiver at this point. I don't think he can run effectively enough to be a home run threat or be particularly dangerous after the catch. Sterling Shepard, he'll have him and Ingram. I think will have their opportunities in this one, but Beckham's the main man, and I think the Bucs have to make, injured or not, a major effort to keep him quiet. So I'd expect Grimes to be on him all day long with a little bit of help. That's the key matchup. They've got to keep him quiet. Can't let him go over the top. Try and get him to go inside, put some hits on him, maybe make Eli make some bad decisions, because he will force the ball to Odell in key situations. You can manipulate that fact. The other matchups, I think Hargraves against Brandon Marshall. I think Marshall will have some opportunities in this one, but I'm looking for that game from Hargraves. At some point he's going to have a game where he steps up for me, and I'm hoping this is the one. I think Marshall will get his targets in this, but he's been very inefficient so far. But the way Hargraves defends, he'll be off him for large chunks of this game, so Marshall will be given opportunities to get inside and make some plays. Whether he can make them will certainly be a big deal in this one. The other receivers, I think they've got some good matchups. The Buccaneers do not have much depth. They're not great in coverage at the secondary position. I think Ingram in particular could be the X factor for this offensive unit. With Lavonte David missing, I think they look to have Quan Alexander cover him, and that can just create mismatches on its own by the nature of having a middle linebacker having to pay major attention to where the tight end is and cover him. So we may see a fair bit of zone coverage, I think, from the Buccaneers, even though they struggled in that regard last week. Some of those zones were far too gaps were far too big between them, easily manipulated. So I think those two guys could have some success, and I think that's where the Giants' game plan has to lie. The Giants have a major mismatch on the offensive line. Again, the big question with the Buccaneers' defence this week is how healthy it is. But if they've got all their guys back, and it sounds like they should, other than Lavonte David, this defensive line should have too much for what's been arguably one of the worst offensive lines in the league at this point. The Bucs have struggled with edge rush, but I think Noah Spence will play a lot of snaps in this one. I don't think the Bucs will be too worried about the Giants' ground game, which has been just non-existent on a weekly basis. So I think Spence sees a lot more snaps than William Golston. I think he can beat either one of these tackles consistently. Ayers should be able to generate some pressure, and Gerald McCoy should have a field day, slightly bum ankle and all, Chris Baker's back. I cannot see any kind of run game for the Giants this week. Again, unless the Bucs have significant injuries. And I think there'll be pressure coming up the middle and from the edge. So they're going to have to play a quick passing game. That's why I think Shepard and Ingram are going to be key. Brandon Marshall might make some catches, but I don't think he's got the yards after catch ability that they're going to need to convert first downs and to get those quick plays and make them explosive and make this team actually get up the field and not have so many free and outs. They can't afford to be punting as much as they have been. This Giants defence is as advertised. They're playing fantastically. They're just getting gassed in games because this offence has been, up until that fourth quarter last week, an absolute mess. And even then the Eagles lost Fletcher Cox, and that had a big impact on how that game was going. And the Bucs have a very talented front if everyone's there. So I think it's going to be tough for the Giants. Cannot see them getting too many points as a result. They're going to have to play a clean game. I think if they can keep Eli from getting too many hits, get him into the game early, let's say quick rhythm type stuff, slants, drags, unexciting stuff, but they've got to get it done because they're having these horrifically slow starts, making it very difficult for the team to get in rhythm, falling behind, and they don't have the talent on that offensive front to get away with that right now. The run game is non-existent. I can't see that changing this week. It's going to be a difficult one. So maybe they need to use some screens in this one. The Buccaneers are a pursuit-based, speed-based team. If they can make a couple of plays on the outside, that way I think they can open things up, and that might include the run game, which I think they're going to have to sprinkle in there just to try and keep the Bucs a little bit honest, and also to give this defence a rest, because in spite of this, I still don't see them having huge amounts of offensive success in this one. Bleeding clock is going to need to be a part of what they do, and you just can't be dropping back on every play. It makes things far too easy. On the defensive side for the Bucs, the key matchups, already mentioned the Odell Beckham-Grimes matchup, but that one really is huge. Just give Grimes the help, and with Beckham in his current state, I think they should be able to do enough to limit him. It'd be very worrying if they can't. On the defensive front, I think you can just rush the four, give Spence a lot of snaps, move him about, have him up against both tackles, preferably against Flowers, because I think he'll just be able to get round him all day long. Let Gerald McCoy do his thing in the middle. Sprinkle the odd blitz in there just to mix things up. Try and get Eli rattled early in the game, because we've seen that happening and him sort of struggling to get over it. Get that done, and then you can just sit in your zone coverages with your double on Beckham, and then I hope Eli can give you a few lame ducks, maybe get some turnovers out of the game. If the Bucs can get 1 or 2 turnovers, I think they end up winning this game comfortably. On the opposite side of the ball, however, we encounter a lot of the same problems. The Buccaneers' offensive line is absolutely overmatched heading into this one, especially if Olivier Vernon plays. There is the possibility he miss out, which would be a huge blow to the Giants. Their strength is that front four. The Buccaneers tackles, DeMar Dotson's played okay. Donovan Smith is struggling at the moment. If these two ends are both in play, I think that hurts the Bucs significantly. Expecting to see a lot of 2 tight end sets as a result, with OJ Howling, possibly a mix of Luke Stocker and Cam Brate. If Stocker's in, that'll give away that he's in to block for probably 90% of the time. But I think we'll see a lot of that as the Bucs try to slow these edge rushers down. There's been far too much pressure on Jameis Winston at this point in time. The other issue for the Buccaneers, still not got Doug Martin back, and this offensive line is not run blocking particularly well. They had some success against the Bears because the Bears got worn down from being on the field all day. Now the Giants have had those problems because their offense has been poor, but early in this one, that's where the Bucs need to get going. I'm expecting to see more of Charles Sims, though, running up the middle against this Giants team. I just can't see them having any success doing it. I think You want to see two tight ends on one side, or both tight ends in, running some zonal type stuff. Maybe having Charles Sims in there because he gives you a bit more in the passing game than Jacquizz Rodgers does. And I think the Buccaneers have to be flexible. Jameis is going to have to call a good game at the line of scrimmage, because I think this Giants team has a lot of talent, and I think the Bucs have the players to manipulate matchups. I think Jameis has to be smart in doing that for the Bucs to come out of this one with a lot of offensive success. The key matchup, though, similar to the other side of the ball, one of the best young receivers in the game in Mike Evans against one of the top young corners in Janoris Jenkins. Both similar types of players, big, physical, tough players for their position. Evans has started the season well, making tough catches, got held in check by Xavier Rhodes last week, but managed to make some plays in the game. Jenkins is going to have to be able to defend him one-on-one. Because of Desean Jackson's presence on the other side, and the other corners, I think, lacking the speed to get with him, I think you're going to have a safety edging to that side. So Evans, if Jenkins can't deal with him, which it'll be a good one, it'll be a lot of fun to watch. That'll be a problem. What I think Jenkins needs to do is perhaps play a little less aggressively than he has. Evans is at his best when he's in these physical matchups at the line of scrimmage that allow him to get over the top. If the timing's there with Jameis, that could burn him. He's also very good at double moves for a guy his size, and Jenkins is a player that will guess every so often. So I think he's got to be more disciplined than perhaps he usually is, considering the overall offensive talent that Jameis has to go to. Desean Jackson is always going to be the X factor for this Buccaneers team. If he can break a big one, that will be huge. I'm not sure who they used to cover him. I wouldn't want to put Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie out there. At his age, I don't know if he's got the quickness to deal with him, but I don't know if you can trust Eli Apple. I think that's the biggest mismatch the Bucs have. I expect to see Landon Collins putting some attention over on that side of the field. Although really, that's the issue. What to do with Landon Collins? Do you want him defending against Cam Brate? Because the Giants' linebackers really struggle in coverage, and I think this is the key matchup the Bucs need to manipulate over the course of the game. Jameis has not been very proficient or even shown much of a liking for throwing the ball over the middle of the field. This is the game where I think he has to do it. OJ Howard and Cam Brate should be able to dominate these guys. And if they can, I think it forces Landon Collins to come in, cover one of these safeties. That opens up Desean Jackson on the outside, or Mike Evans to be one-on-one for the entirety of the game with no shade. That's where the Bucs can start looking for the big play. And I think they're going to need to get one or two in this one, because I don't know if they're going to be able to consistently move the ball on the Giants, because I just can't see them having nearly enough running success in this one. So those tight ends, they're going to be huge. I expect to see some drags, some ins, anything, or the seam. You expect a couple of seam routes to the tight end, because that's just one of the things the Buccaneers do constantly. The slot receivers, similar thing. If the Bucs go 4 wide, then they need to be able to manipulate that. I don't like the idea of the Bucs doing this because of the mismatch up front. The biggest problem the Bucs have is offensive line. They can't really make the most of all these weapons in the passing game because Jameis just isn't getting the time right now. But expect to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. I want to see some creative use of them. I want to see some motions, trying to figure out what this Giants team's doing, and some creative use of when to go downfield, because Buccaneers offense has felt very predictable the last couple of years. Just you get a sense as to when Jameis Winston's going to go downfield, and it tends to happen. And I really do feel like teams are keying on it somewhat. So if you're the Bucs, keep it short, simple, much like the Giants. I suggested the same thing. You're going to have to try and open things up on the outside of the field, especially with these guys, and you're going to have to protect well. So get creative in how you do that. Use some play action, use some motions. I think getting Jameis on the move is going to be essential. He's going to need to focus in this one. He cannot afford to have any turnovers or any huge turnovers in this game. There's some ball hawks there. Landon Collins, Janoris Jenkins, they will pick you off if they're given half an opportunity. Janoris is going to have to be disciplined. He's going to have to use all of his guys. And I think they're going to have to move the running backs around. Try and get this defence tired. Get them stretched. Don't be predictable. And I think they can have plenty of success. Well, not plenty of success, but enough success to win this game. Keep that defensive front from just crushing the pocket on every play. Because if they're getting that constant pressure, Jameis will likely make mistakes. He's at his worst when he starts feeling all the heat in the pocket and feels like he has to make a play, even when there are times in games where he doesn't. He can be a little bit rash. And I think the Giants will try to make the most of that. I think they're going to blitz a bit more than we're perhaps used to. They don't really have to, considering the quality of the front. But I think they will trust in if they can put pressure on James, he's going to just put one up there to Mike Evans. So I'm expecting to see that. If the Bucs are smart about it, they can manipulate that. They'll be able to get Charles Sims or one of them tight ends just on an easy completion over the middle. But we'll see. We'll see how that ends up turning up. The Giants defensively, it's like I say, kind of you think how the Bucs are going to attack you. Jenkins has to hold down his end of the deal. That's just how it's going to have to be. I think with Desean, you've just got to get the help there. I think you put Apple on him. I think you put Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie in the slot, or rather than having one of the linebackers on one of these tight ends, I think you maybe put Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie there. Collins is going to have to help out with Desean Jackson over the top, because that's the guy that you're going to worry about otherwise. And I think you just rush with the 4. Don't bother with anything too creative, I don't think. Just trust your guys to win their matchups. If Olivier Vernon's out, then I think maybe you do need to bring a bit more pressure. I think the Bucs will be able to neutralise the one defensive end threat, because the thing is, as much as I love Snacks Harrison, there's not going to be, I don't expect to see too much interior pressure in this game. Ali Marpet also needs to be better snapping the ball. There are a few iffy snaps last week from him. So how do I see this one going? I'm expecting this to be a really cagey game. Both teams will feel like they really need a win after the results last week. Particularly the Giants, their season it feels like it's a long way back even now, 0-3, but 0-4 would be the death now. For the Buccaneers, 1-2 would feel pretty bad at this point, especially with the Patriots coming up next week. So I like the Buccaneers to get this one if the defenders are healthy. If they are, I just think, based on what we've seen so far, the Giants' offence, I just can't put any stock in them having much success. And I think a healthy Buccaneers D controls the line of scrimmage. I think they'll be able to get enough pressure on Eli to maybe force a mistake or two. On the other side of the field, I think you'll probably get the same thing, but I just have a bit more trust in this Buccaneers passing game that's looked a lot more cohesive, in spite of having some of the same problems that the Giants are having in terms of protection and a fairly iffy run game. Both of these quarterbacks are known for their mistakes. That's going to be the defining factor in this game. If there's a team that wins the turnover battle by 2, that team wins. I just can't see it going any other way. But at the minute, I think Jameis Winston is just playing better football than Eli Manning over the course of these first 2 weeks. Well, first 3 weeks of the season, 2 weeks for the Bucs. That I'm going to have to give him the edge. I think his weapons are a little bit better at this stage in time as well. Brandon Marshall looks a little bit done to me. So I think the Bucs come up with this one. However, wouldn't be entirely shocked after last week's performance if the Bucs come out a bit flat and the Giants perhaps take advantage of that. But I think both of these teams need this one. And so there you have it. Those are my thoughts on that matchup. As always, thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you want to talk some ball, let us know what matchups you're interested in, how you see this one going. Got the comment section below, Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter @SimonConboy. Always love talking ball. If you can check out some more of the episodes, that'd be grand too. We've got the live roundtable that we're doing weekly. It's going to be on Tuesday next week, covering each game that's occurred, all the games coming up, and what we consider the important bits of news each week. Other than that, we've got previews, reviews of games going up all the time, and a new feature where I'll be talking about the Bucs once a week, just nothing but Bucs. Arnie will be doing the same with the Titans, and possibly Dan with the Cardinals as well. So I think they'll be good. They're also going to be live streams, so you guys can get involved, come and chat with us as we do those episodes. Maybe do, if we can, start getting some people watching the live streams, do a bit of a Q&A sort of thing. I think that could be a lot of fun. So check all that stuff out, and if you can like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff, it'd be wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It's been a pleasure as always. Have a great evening, and go Bucs.